So, hello everyone. This is like the in-depth follow-up video to my FMOD Learning demo games. I don't want to say my games because I only reused Unity's learning things, so yeah, whatever, the projects, to sort of give you an idea of how to use them. So first you need to get to GitHub, to my GitHub, to find the different projects I prepared. This, for example, is the platformer one. And I have to point out that with some other projects, you might be able just to download the zip. But because I'm relying on the large file support, the LFS, heavily, downloading the zip apparently doesn't really work, so you have to use some sort of Git tool. So for example, GitHub Desktop, if you have that, and you can just clone the whole repository to have it locally on your machine. So when you've done that, this is basically what you get, for example, for the platformer projects. And the other projects are structured similarly. Sometimes there's like the major folder. For example, for the 3D game, we'll have a look into that in a second. There's like a folder named 3D demo game, and inside you'll find the FMOD session. So we first look into the FMOD folder. You always have this small text file saying which FMOD version you need. I try to stick to the 2.03.09 through all the learning projects, but I've updated another one. So if you're working on an older commit for whatever reason, always look out for the version. Then I've already moved the original audio assets from the project, which are normally found under assets and then audio, into the FMOD folder as well. So it's a bit easier to find. And then we have the FMOD project in multiple languages, for example, for the moment only German and English. If you ever feel like translating another one, feel free to send a merge request or something. Then when we open the project, you find this color-coded structure. This structure is as well similar throughout all the FMOD learning projects to sort of, again, help you to get along a bit better. But for now, that's the first step we're gonna take. We just open up the FMOD session. Then we go back in our project. And the other important folder you need is the builds folder. There you find the build for Windows and Mac. As I'm on Windows, I'll open the Windows build. And that will open as a windowed application, which you can as well full screen or not, and resize as you like. And then the only thing else you need to do is to press live update and connect. And now your FMOD session is connected to that build project of the platformer or any other game. So for example, if we want to start out with collecting the tokens, you can either grab your own sound files, or you can, for the beginning, just use the original audio assets. So this is, for example, the collectible. And now you hear how you collected that single gem or coin or whatever. Just to prove how it would sound without any further sound attached, if I jump on that enemy, no sound. Oh, whatever. And if we add a sound to the enemy death, land on enemy, and now when I land on the enemy, we have this farty death sound for the enemy. A few things to keep in mind. In this platformer project, for example, there are not that many events which require to be 3D because everything is mostly happening in the center. The only exception basically is the enemy idle thingy, where there isn't even a sound supplied in the standard original audio file, so you have to come up with something. For a really cheesy way around that, I'm gonna use the music file because that's a looping one. I'm gonna set that to loop, And as you noticed, it's not playing right away, as you would expect from, I don't know, the enemy over here. This is because all the looping assets are started once the program or the level is loaded. And as we added the sound after the event started to play, there's nothing, or the event basically was empty and stopped right away. So for that to work, we have to press escape and restart the level. Excuse the high volume, but this is basically what I wanted to present as well, partly because at the moment it's not specialized. We have, I don't know, 10 different instances of this music playing at the same time because there are that many enemies running around. So what we need to add is a FMOD spatializer. And now you already noticed it's a lot quieter. So I'm gonna reset the volume and set the max distance to, I don't know, 7-ish. And when I'm now approaching that enemy, it's still really loud, I'm sorry. You do hear how the music gets louder, and you hear it coming from the according speaker. 3D audio. Yippee. This is much more complex than other demo games. For example, the 3D thing I already mentioned, it's just called the Explorer. Because there are multiple enemies, there's panned ambience, there's just much more going on. But the same concept applies. If there is the name loop in the event name, you do need to restart the scene. And as well, if you add on a spatializer or you remove it, then you need to reload the scene as well. Second thing, which I wanted to point out, other options in this menu, which can be found in the other games as well, is besides the restart button, the teleport button, which normally just sets you to closely to the end of the level, so you can test out sounds without having to always grind to the level. So in this game, we're close to the house victory zone thingy. If we, for example, wanted to test the parameter which I added, which is just called Ziel erreicht, because I can't translate parameters in the FMOD session. So those are always German, but you'll find a description in the notes. If you want to test that, or the event reached finished with, I don't know, whatever sound we have. Just gonna use anything for the moment. Nice. With this game, it's a bit weird because you're basically stuck in this final animation. So if you want to start over, you have to restart the game as well. Cool. So, small thing which I've already been teasing is I've as well added some parameters. Those are, as I said, always German. The thing is, I can translate the event names because they're internally set to, only rely on the GUID. Doesn't really matter, but that only means you can rename and move all those events as you like, but that doesn't work for the parameters, sadly. So they have to be German, and I try to explain it as good as possible with the notes of the parameters. In this example, we only have global parameters, but for some other example games, I've provided there as well local parameters, for example, for the ground you're stepping on in other games, to change the step sound. Then if there's only a local parameter, as that local parameter only works with the events I've been setting them up for, you always find in the description for which events they're working. Yes, additionally, as I've been already talking about the nodes, for all the events over here, you see as well a node trying to explain what the event actually does if there's some sort of confusion with the name I've given to the event. Again, not that special in this demo project, but I've tried to add some tags to the different projects as well. For example, you can filter by 3D events or events which could be interesting to be set to 3D. So 3D meaning to add a spatializer. Or I try to set up a sort of lesson project. So if you really are starting out, for example, lesson 1 in this project filters out most of the events and you can really focus on only a few. If we quickly have a look in the 3D Game Kit FMOD project, you'll see that the lesson concept is a lot more intricate. So for example, lesson 1 is limited to a main character and non-3D sounds except for the dropship and stuff. Then if you're trying to get further into those lessons, as I said, I try to make up a concept for that. There's always in the repository a description for those lessons. So maybe that's useful for you, but feel free to create other tags as well. Quickly to have a look at the parameters as well. As I said, a few local ones here as well. For example, ground type, on which player and monsters are currently walking on per step. So, for example, if I bring up the main character step event, I could add a parameter sheet and use the ground type. That's basically what I mean. We'll have a look into that project in a second. Just wanted to bring that up already. Last thing after events parameters is a mixer overview. The mixer overview is basically changeable as you like. So feel free to, I don't know, set up your own bus structure and whatsoever that works while the project is running via live update. I've implemented some snapshots. It's a bit difficult to anticipate what you could be possibly interested in. So for example, in the platformer project over here, we have 2 snapshots paused. That one's triggered when the game's paused. And the other one when you're in like some cavey areas. I really have to mute that music. So to quickly show, for example, where the snapshots are triggered, we do have one sort of secret secret area in here that, for example, triggers the cave snapshot, which I've just been showing, the reverb snapshot. And if we look by the end of the level, you see all this area is basically covered, so that triggers the reverb snapshot as well. If you want to have a look into snapshots, that could be a possibility, but especially for the platformer, I don't think it's really necessary. Cool. So far for the platformer project. So now quickly we're gonna have a look into the other end of the spectrum, with the platformer being the easiest project and the 3D game being the probably most advanced one. So first thing which I need to point out is that for the 3D game, there are separate repositories for the FMOD and Unity project for the builds, and I've even included some screen captures if you want to sound design for specific animations. So we're quickly gonna have a look into each of them. First of all, the Unity and FMOD repository one. As I said before, it's pretty similarly structured. We have all the assets used for the Unity project, and in there is the FMOD session. Same thing. and it opens up the FMOD session with a similar structure for all the possible events. The next one is the build repository. In there we only have a folder called build, and then your operating system, Windows, double click, and it opens up the Explorer game. So I'm gonna resize that one as well. And lastly, we have the screen captures. Those are not essential in a way, just, yeah, let's say, gives you the opportunity to have a look into the different animations and have an impression of what they actually do, because there's a lot of stuff going on. So for example, if we look into enemies, we have the golem animations, how he's falling apart, how he's shooting, how he's walking. Or as well for the main character, for example, the respawn, I do think is really interesting because we have a small particle effect swooshing around. Yeah, stuff like that. But yeah, at the end, this project is working similarly as well. So if I want to place any sound in there, I'm gonna press live update. Then let's gonna start with the UI stuff. For example, the hover. So I'm gonna dive into the FMOD folder, original audio assets, and then UI. As before, the original audio assets are just the ones provided in the project originally. Feel free to use your own ones or design your sounds, or if you just want to get along with FMOD, you can use those sounds. So now when we hover over any button, we have this neat little click. Nice. As we have like a more advanced start menu in this game, there is an ambience start loop as well. So we could drop in an ambience from the original audio assets. Ambience, we just take overground and set it to loop. And as you again notice, the sound isn't playing because the event has been triggered once and the event was empty when it was triggered. So we have to reload the scene. And the ambience is really quiet, so I'm gonna crank it up a bit. Awesome. Already gives a cool vibe. And to quickly have a look into parameters and stuff, we're gonna set up different steps for our main character. So for that, I'm gonna choose the step event, and I've already dropped in a parameter sheet just to show you again how that's working. We can do add parameter sheet and then ground type. And then from our original audio assets, Ellen, that's the name they gave the main character, we go for run. Then we just start out with earth. Let's take 5 variations and drop them in. And then puddle for like the more swampy, watery area. And we drop some of those assets in as well. And now those are the swampy steps. And now when I'm walking onto that cliff thingy, it should change to the earth steps. Nice. Really, really easy setup for interactive audio. Again, for 3D stuff, if we want to give an ambience for the dropship, we could do the inside or outside, doesn't really matter. Gonna go with environment, dropship, Then let's drop in the mono loop for now, set it to loop, and again, we have to restart the level. And we hear a dropship. Problem is, it's not yet spatialized, so gonna drop in a spatializer as well. And it cuts off the volume, but sadly, it's not like actually applying the spatializer. So as I said, you again need to restart the level. And now, when I'm looking around, you hear the dropship from left and right, and when I'm approaching and leaving the dropship, it's getting quieter and louder. Awesome. Last thing which I want to show in this project as well, when I press the escape key, as you've already seen, we enter the pause menu, and you have similar options as in the platformer game as well. You can reload or restart the level. You can teleport to the end of the level. Just gonna have a quick look for now. We're like next to this golem grenade boss and close to this portal over here. And other things which you can actually do in this demo game, there's a level selection button. So you can quickly jump between the two pre-made levels, which are fully designed levels meant to solve riddles and all of that. Then I just called it peaceful because it's only the start area of the very first level we've just seen. That means I just blocked the cliff over there. So if you, for example, are working with that project with, let's say, smaller kids or something, it might be a bit overwhelming to have a lot going on. So it's easier to focus on this area, do main character stands, do a bit for the dropship, and maybe that's enough for, yeah, let's say 1 or 2 hours. And the last thing, if you only want to test the enemy sounds you've created, I've created a specific enemy scene which is like really minimal in the design. And in each corner of the level, you'll find the 3 enemy types. So over here, this little blue guy is the spitter enemy, which, yeah, as you see, spits this thing. Then on the other side we have the chomper, over here, which is basically a small melee creature, so it's gonna charge at me and do a melee attack. And lastly, on the other corner we have this big golem enemy, which, yeah, fires bouncing grenades, and yeah, overall is really interestingly designed and gives a lot of opportunity for sound design as well, because as well, when I'm standing really close, he's gonna punch me, and if I'm standing behind him, he's gonna charge like a shield attack. So really cool enemy design in my opinion. And lastly, a bit of a special thing in this game, we have an options thing with audio. Those are set up to, yeah, work with FMOD as well. So if you want to set audio settings for whatever reasons for your own sound, you could do, but maybe just stick to a muting and unmuting habit, so you're not messing up with the volume and then wondering, well, things are not working, whatever. And you can change the language. This is not affecting this scene, but for example, if we have a look in the first scene again, you'll see this text box down here, and if you change the language to English, the next text box is English. This is basically only for synchronizing the main character speaking those sentences, because I don't know, I thought it might be interesting if you're working with, again, kids and teenagers, that they're able to speak their own character or something. Might be a really cool thing for them. Just as a side note, I know there would have been the option to use programmer instruments, which is like the proper way to do localization, but that would have taken away some sort of intuitive design approach, in my opinion. So I've just stick to normal sounds, and we're basically only relying on one language in one session. Yes, again, feel free to use the mixer for any mixing, and we have some more reverb set up here. Again, this is probably not really the way you would expect actual shipped game to work, because you probably would only have like 3 reverbs with like big, small, medium, and most likely you would use a parameter based approach. But I wanted to have like this snapshot thing in there, because snapshots are like the way FMOD in their tutorials is recommending how to use reverb. So here you go, I guess. Yeah, that was the not so quick rundown of how to use the demo projects, and I really hope they help you in some form in learning game audio and FMOD. And yeah, have a wonderful day.